Cody Campbell. My God, he's basically almost in some ways become part of the face of college athletics, involved in trying to fix everything. Uh, is this a passion of yours? Are people listening to you because obviously you've made a dent?
Yeah, I mean, it's a deep passion for me because I know that personally, everything that I am, everything I've become, emerged from the lessons that I learned, the character I developed, the opportunity I got through playing college sports. Same thing goes for my dad who played college football, my grandfather, all my friends and, folks that I've been around my entire life. I know what college sports does for individuals and for the country as a whole. And so I'm extremely passionate about trying to make sure that we preserve it. And I know that right now it's in great peril. I mean, it's in danger. Since the House settlement was passed, something like 40 to 50 different sports programs have been cut, non-revenue programs. Every time one of those sports is cut, a kid loses an opportunity for an education, for, advancement in their own life. And I don't want to see that happen. I also think about the communities that these schools are in and how important it is to those communities. Want to make sure that, that part of our culture remains intact because I think it's a huge part of what America is. College sports are the ultimate, American institution, in my opinion.
Cody, I think you took a lot of people by surprise when you did that last interview before the council or whatever was going to happen there. But when you talked about what your vision was, because people see this, you see landman, oil guy, like lots of money, and they think, well, he just wants to pump money into the one thing that he likes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not at all the case with you.
No.
You are very passionate about the belief. I remember reading about let's do the TV deals all together because the rising tide lifted all boats. And I think you caught a lot of people a little flat-footed there because they just assumed what your overall goal was, and it was very different than they expected.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm all about preservation of all the schools, all the sports. I think women's sports are exceptionally important in this country. I think they're at the most risk. The Olympic sports are at risk. We're the only country in the world that houses its Olympic development system in colleges. Without college sports, we don't have an Olympic development system. I mean, not to mention the fact that, and this is a crazy statistic that I read yesterday, it was a Cornell University study, 94% of women who are in C-suite roles have a college sports background. Over 60% of CEOs overall have a college sports background. So the amount of leadership development that comes through our college sports system and the impact that has on our economy, our industry, who we are as a nation is massive. And so, if I want to find a way to give back from the position that I'm in, I can't think of a better place to do it because it's a system that I understand. I understand it because I've played, but also because I've been deeply involved in the whole NIL transition and, deeply involved at Texas Tech and understand higher education and the business that it is. And ultimately, I think what people fail to understand is that this is a business problem. It's all about money. And the reality is, unfortunately, there's not enough money to pay the players and preserve all the sports. So what we have to find a creative solution to, expanding the economic pie so that we can do both, because the players do deserve to be paid. Players need to be taken care of. These guys bring a lot of value to the schools. But at the same time, the kid that's a wrestler at Iowa State also deserves the opportunity that he has. And so we need to make sure that we do both. And one way to do that is, like, as you mentioned, is to give college sports the same rights to market their media that the pro sports have, where they all pool together and they make one media deal. And so they get a lot more money. They also can optimize their scheduling. Right now, we cannibalize viewership like crazy. We stack marquee matchups on top of one another. We don't have enough time slots. Why doesn't every team play in week 0? Why doesn't every team play on Army-Navy week? It doesn't make any sense. We need to find a way to expand the economic pie and optimize our scheduling. I think that people who are threatened by my ideas assume that if we all pool together our media rights, then that means that we're going to have some kind of socialist revenue distribution. That's not what I'm advocating for at all. What I'm trying to advocate for is just, a system where the small schools have enough money to sustain themselves, understanding that there are a lot of programs that bring a lot more eyeballs and a lot more value, and they're always going to have an advantage economically, until somebody competes with them and takes that spot. But all I'm looking for is just a way to try to solve this economic formula that right now is very, very broken and is going to result in opportunity lost and communities hurt. and institutions hurt if we don't do something about it.
How much of your knowledge and success of oil, natural gas in that business, which is, look, it's a lot of people making a lot of money and big decisions on a very crucial thing that the world runs on, but also you guys do have to be pulling in mostly the same direction. Otherwise there's chaos that you can maybe apply to this.
Yeah. I mean, like I said before, everything I am is because of what I learned through football, and building a successful business is all about the team, right? It's leading a team. It's having the right people on the team. It's having everybody pull the rope the same direction. And that's, I think, what we have to do to be successful in reforming college sports is that we all have to get everyone thinking about the same ideas and pushing for the same solutions, because right now there are a million different things being thrown at Congress. They don't know, they don't understand it because they don't live it. They haven't been directly involved with it. And so I think that we just have to try to unify to some extent as many voices as possible around a single set of solutions that will comprehensively and sustainably save college sports. And that's what we're trying to do. Again, all the sports, all the schools, not just a few, not just the sports that make money. We have to save all of them.
It's interesting because we hear everybody in college athletics say, oh, we need to do something, we need to act, and then something happens and they're like, well, we don't want to do it like that way, and I think of like the commission that was announced, and then all of a sudden Nick Saban's like, well, I don't know about any commission. And I just wonder, like, how much headwind and adversity have you faced in trying to do the right thing ultimately, and the people that say they want to do the similar, do similar and do the right thing aren't necessarily wanting to do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that there's a small set of bad actors who are just trying to make money off of it and line their own pockets. I'm coming at this thing working for less than free. I'm spending a lot of money to try to make it work, and have no agenda other than just to preserve the system that's done so much for so many and so much for me. And so I think that we have to be careful in thinking about people's agenda and their own personal motivations when they push for different things. And there are a lot of people out there that are taking advantage of the athletes right now. There are a lot of people who are taking advantage of the system overall. A lot of people who want to just preserve their own position wherever they are. Not to say that they don't have a perspective that should be listened to, because I think we should listen to everybody. But we have to be thoughtful about the fact that, there are some people that are in it for themselves. And, but the vast majority of people I talk to just love college sports, and they want to make sure that it stays what it's been, and it continues to serve the role that it served. And so there are a lot more of the good guys than there are the bad guys. That's what I can tell you for sure. Now, Washington, D.C. is a frustrating place. It's confusing. It's difficult. It's as bad as anybody ever says that it is. My experience is it's actually worse. It's slow. And so, we got to be patient, but I think the biggest challenge we probably have is getting enough attention on an issue that's somewhat complicated, more complicated than people realize. At the same time that there are so many other issues right now that are facing this country that are very important that also need to be addressed. And so that's a difficult thing. It's just getting the amount of time and attention necessary to comprehensively solve the problem and not just kick the can down the road.
So it seems like you're scaring the hell out of some people. And I'm not saying that's what you're wanting to do, because people, they didn't know much about you. They may have known about your career, whatever. Do they misunderstand what you're trying to do? Do people like the SEC and Big Ten want all this? And here comes Cody Campbell with ideas to maybe level the playing field. And it seemed like all of a sudden they're paying attention to you, but they don't like being told what to do they?
Oh, I don't know. If the SEC is or Big Ten is threatened by me, they shouldn't be, because I'm just trying to make them more money, to be honest with you. I mean, if we modify the Sports Broadcasting Act, they're going to benefit the most of anybody. And so they shouldn't be concerned about what I'm doing. And a lot of their institutions are having to cut sports. I mean, the Big Ten schools have really big budgets, but it's because they sponsor a whole bunch of sports. Barely any of them, only one that I'm aware of, runs a budget surplus. So they have to find a place to come up with this salary cap money, and that means they're going to have to cut programs. They produce a lot of Olympic athletes, and we want them to continue producing a lot of Olympic athletes. So we have to find a way for the Big Ten to make more money. The only way, the lever that we have to pull there is optimization of scheduling and the Sports Broadcasting Act. And so, in my opinion, they should be in favor of that. Again, I think people have made the assumption that I'm looking for some kind of revenue distribution where we're going to take a bunch of money away from them and give it to other people. That's not what I'm looking for. I want to make sure that we can sustain everybody, and the Big Ten and the SEC included, make sure that they can keep their gymnastics and their swimming and all these things that they do, wrestling, all the things that they do really well that a lot of people don't even participate in.
When you sat down with Kirby and Joey and others and the donors and boosters of Texas Tech and said, hey, there's an opening for us to get involved, and it's obviously working with the news of the recruitment, what did you expect to happen? And do you get the feeling that there are some schools that are saying, wait a minute, Texas Tech's not allowed to have this kind of success?
Yeah, maybe so.
There's definitely some of that going on.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I expected that, it would be a really good meeting because those guys are smart. They're aggressive. They're forward leaning. Throughout the process of this NIL era, we've been on the forefront of, understanding what's going on and being strategic and being nimble. And so that's exactly what we did. When we set up the big strategy for the December football portal, it went like every other meeting did. We all put our heads together, thought through the strategy and came up with something that we could not only execute on, but also clearly communicate to all the people that needed to be involved, because we weren't going to do it with just one donor or just a small group of people. Like, we had an army of donors, more than a dozen people write 7-figure checks and 3,500 different individual donors that were helping. And so we raised a lot of money, and it was because it was a team effort, again, that everybody understood, everybody bought into and was willing to invest in and saw the return on investment that could be gotten. And so I'm just, ultimately it comes down to Texas Tech as a place where we have a big alumni base, but we have an extremely passionate alumni base. And people love Texas Tech that went there. And so everyone we called on when we explained what we're doing, they got it, they helped. And so I can't speak highly enough about, about that passion and about that commitment that our boosters and our alumni have to our program and elevating us, and taking advantage of the opportunity to kind of, level up through this chaotic environment that we've had.
You are a very straight shooter kind of a person. And so it would seem to me when you mentioned about Washington, D.C., which is overrun with rhetoric and not necessarily the facts of the situation when it comes to whatever you want to pick, out of the grab bag. Is that hard? Is that the hardest part, is when you talk to someone and be like, look, I know that's what you say out loud, or what people say. Here's the facts of the matter, and here's how it is. Because I think that seems to be where the wall keeps getting hit is, well, I said all this stuff into a microphone, and now I have to match that here, but this doesn't match that because the facts of it are a little bit different.
I think that college sports are slightly different because it's really not a partisan issue.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really everybody kind of agrees on the ultimate goals. The biggest challenge is just getting enough attention paid to it because they have a lot going on. And again, it is more complicated than it seems, on its face. And so that's the challenge, is just getting all the information to the right people and getting them to understand the economic situation. I mean, I've had to be as blunt as to say, look, guys, let me explain this to you. There is not enough money in the system to pay the players and keep all the sports. And it's like, they're like, well, what do you mean there's not enough money to pay the players and keep all the sports? I said, there's not enough money. I mean, so that's the fundamental problem here. So we have to find a way to solve that problem. And so just getting simple things like that through to them. And once they understand the basics, then there are very, very smart people there who can dive into the weeds and write the legislation and do the things that need to be done. We're capable of accomplishing this. It can happen, but it really is just a matter of education on very basic things and the economics of college sports and the business that it's become.
Has it been weird to be, I mean, I guess you've chosen to be sort of out front, right? But you're talked about a lot now, whereas maybe a year ago, in Lubbock, people were talking about you. But is it strange in a way? You've obviously embraced it, but to suddenly be kind of a focal point of this grander conversation.
Well, it is strange, but if and I don't necessarily want the attention or want to be that guy, but if I can serve in that role and be out front and be helpful and help to get the right ideas out there, my hope is that enough people start to understand it, that I can kind of back up and let other people do it, because I have a lot of other things that I going on in my life. I run a business. I have a family, a lot of things. And so I'm hopeful that, if we can get the word out enough and get enough people on board with it, we'll be able to get there without my having to do quite as many interviews and things like that. So.
I know you have a flight to catch, but your love of Texas Tech, you mentioned that, and to see them and what Joey's trying to produce, that means he's also got to win. I mean,
Sure.
you can do all this, but he's got to win. How has he embraced it or handled it?
I mean, I haven't read or seen what he said yesterday, but I assume he told everybody we're going to win the national championship.
Yeah, he didn't quite say that. He talked about Arizona State has a lot of people back, and Kansas State always wins. Yeah.
He's the ultimate optimist, and he's honestly so. I mean, he really believes it. We on paper we have a great roster. I mean, we're probably the most talented team on paper in the conference this year, and so we have a chance to win every game. But and we've done everything we can to control everything that we can control. But you can't control injuries. You can't control bad calls. The ball is shaped funny. It bounces weird ways. You never know what's going to happen. So I think what our goal is to be in a position to compete for a conference championship at the end of the year, compete for a spot in the playoffs. And if we're in that place and we're in those games, we'll see what happens. But that's where we want to be. And it's not just this year. It's year in, year out. We want to be in a spot where late in the season we are competitive for the conference. And that's the goal. And I think we've done everything that we can do, again, that's in our control to put ourselves in that position. Facilities, resources, coaches, we've done it all. And so, and that's what Joey wants too. And he's the type of coach that wants that pressure. He wants to have expectations. And so there's a lot of excitement. It'll be electric in Lubbock on game day this year for every game. And in fact, we've already, essentially sold out. And, so it's really exciting, the season coming up. And we'll see what happens. And football's a crazy sport.
I think people should draw blood, and that could cure depression. Talking just get a little transfusion of Joey, and you're like, man, I'm feeling good.
Let's go.
He's just, I've never met somebody he and Scott Drew are so similar in that I've never seen them have many bad days.
And it's real too. It's authentic. It's not an act. I mean, I thought at first I was like, there's no way this guy can be like this all the time, but that's just who he is. And I love him and want nothing more than for him to be successful.
Cody, good luck with all the other things you have on your plate. As you said, business, family, and all that. Thank you for your time. Thanks for dropping by. We appreciate the access.
Yeah, good talking to you guys.
Cody Campbell with us in Frisco on 365 Sports.